to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I guess that's a challenge, right?
Yes,
Right.
and fashion is one of those very demanding fields where there's always new. But sometimes I have amazing dreams and I just wake up and I have the solution and I'm like, oh wow, like really like, okay, it's all solved. Like, especially like when we would do shows a couple of days before fashion show, there would always be a panic attack. And then somehow like I'd wake up in the morning with the solution. So I think it's when you're in a business where you have to be always cutting edge and new, I think that is really a driving force that you have to stay tuned in with the world around you.
Now, in your bio, you said something about fashion dying?
I feel like there's just a whole new approach to fashion because when I started out, there wasn't a lot of American fashion. And so buyers would come running down to East First Street on the Lower East Side to buy what we had. I mean, and it was amazing. I was in the top stores in the country within a couple of months. We went wholesale. We sold out. It was amazing. There were lines out the door to get into our booth at the Coterie show. We sold $250,000 in 3 days. I mean, but now it's a very different world. There's a lot more people in the business. There's a lot more, there's just a lot of confusion because retail is going through an identity crisis. And people are still adjusting to online shopping. So I think in a sense that it's ready for a renewal, and I think that's something that there's answers to how to do it. And I mean, I think that people who focus on one type of product, one type of customer, are really achieving success in fashion right now. I don't think it's the ones who try to be everything to everybody are the answer to fashion in the crisis that they're in, kind of. It's kind of an identity crisis, I think.
You've talked about what drives you, but there's a fearlessness. Does anybody want to talk about that? You know, the fact that there may be, when you first started, there might have been times when you weren't quite sure how you were going to make certain bills and that kind of thing. How do you deal with those parts of going after your dreams? You want to talk to us about that, Elizabeth?
I have to put this also in the context of being of African descent.
Yes.
Because we talk about glass ceilings, and there are ceilings for people of color, I don't care what you say, right? And there are ceilings for women. And so at some point, a lot of people of color, a lot of women of color go into business because they at least, there's a fantasy that you control your own destiny. When you go into business, you answer to everybody else, right?
Right.
But that you are, I think it has to do with accountability. Having control over accountability is very important. And so that aspect of it, I think for young people today, it's very, very different, quite frankly. So I'm going to speak about somebody who's had a firm for 25 years and sort of comes from an old model. But there weren't other options. You know, you weren't going to make partner for whatever reason. You weren't going to do all of these other things.
So it pushed you.
And so it pushed you in a way. And I remember one time I met somebody who was a landscape architect who'd also gone to Cornell, but he worked for DDC. And he came up to me and he said, I don't know how you and Signe Nielsen do it. And I'm like, do what? And he said, I don't know how you do it. He says, I went out on my own, and I was an associate at HOK, which was a big deal. He says, I went out on my own, and I got a project, and I did the project, and then at the end of the project, I had to figure out that I had to go out and find more work. And I'm looking at him. He says, and my wife said this had to stop. And I told a friend, I said, I looked at him like he had two heads because it didn't dawn on me that you didn't go out and find that next project. Because he then had the option of pivoting and he went into the public sector. You know, but for our generation, we didn't have that option. So the issue of making it work was really as much about survival as much as anything, you know, as passion and drive. So there was that aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback on that, because my parents are, you know, of your generation, and they were immigrants. So when they came here, they had to start their own business. They worked, you know, for other people and saved up their money till they can. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional when I talk about them.
That's okay, please.
But they saved up enough money working, you know, these kind of like very, very, you know, low jobs until they can start their own like grocery market, right? And so I watched them just working tirelessly, you know, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 16-hour days. So I just grew up watching them, and hard work was just like a part of like our home life. You know, it's just something that we just grew up with. And that definitely influenced me, firstly, because especially younger, you know, we didn't have a whole lot. My parents worked very hard to create a very comfortable middle-class life for us. But when we were younger, we didn't have that. So I actually realized I didn't need a whole lot to survive and be happy. You know, so then that definitely was helpful for me when I gave up my full-time job to pay myself nothing and work out of a one-bedroom apartment when I started.
Right. Now, Ashley, this is for you. You were part of a Navy Yard cohort program. Yep. Talk to us about how that supported you, or did it support you?
So I think, the biggest takeaway among many things was that all of these struggles and all of these kind of stressors that come with owning a business, I'm not alone.
Right.
And I think being an entrepreneur is a very kind of lonely existence in some ways. And so stepping into this room with 12 other people that were going through the same things that I was going through, it was just a sense of camaraderie that I hadn't experienced before. And also learning from the other entrepreneurs, I mean, just extraordinary people that were in their program. But, there are some skill sets that you don't necessarily think you need to know when you start a business. And I think you have to kind of check certain boxes, and then the other things you just assume, okay, I'll learn how to apply for grants, sometime. And this really not only bolstered a community of entrepreneurs, but also just gave us these tactile, these set measures that we needed to really know to take our business to the next level. And what I walked away from that, with was not only access to amazing consultants and just masters of the field who came in and spoke with us, but that this whole idea of school of thought around management, and that all the kind of qualities that go into being an entrepreneur and what allows you to start, like curiosity and determination, a lot of those things aren't going to get you to the next level. And so the cohort really prepared me to scale in a meaningful way and introduced me to different business terms that I probably didn't know before.
So the Navy Yard has been really important in terms of helping you to create community, and I'd like to hear from all of you around that. Nanette, you're new to the Yard relatively? Or even
Yes, not even a year yet.
Okay.
Well, I just feel this real sense of support.
Okay.
And community. It's a great place, because there's always, if there's an issue or something, there's always someone there to help you, and then it's full of interesting people. And I like the crossover of art and design and manufacturing and all the different levels of industry within this complex. It's amazing.
How about you, Anna?
Yeah, we're recent tenants as well. We just moved in within the last year, but already we've been really just loving being here. We've gotten to know so many other businesses in the Yard already. There's been already cross-pollination opportunities. The cohort that you mentioned that Ashley was a part of, both Elizabeth and I are members of the 2019 class. And it's just such a wonderful space for collaboration and support and community. It's been really wonderful.
Excellent. Now we're getting close on time, so I want each of you to give a little advice to the ladies and gentlemen out here that are in our audience about what, if you had to advise them on starting their own business and being able to grow it, what would you say? I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I would say that realize that you're going to make about $1 an hour. Ooh. Because you're going to have to work 24/7, so don't expect to make money. And also, you really have to believe in yourself, because there aren't always people out there pushing behind you to say, oh, this is all going to be okay. There were so many times when I thought, oh no, this is the end.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you're resilient, right?
Financial
that resiliency
issue.
factor, yeah.
Yeah, and so you just have to believe you can do it and push yourself, because no one else is going to do it. And I couldn't fail. I knew if I failed, I would never be able to pay back the $100,000 I had lost. So I was like, okay, I have to make this work. So I think that a lot of it has to come from within, and you have to really believe in yourself. And when, it's a little, I would always know when the alert would go up and I would have to have somebody help me or figure it out, but I would push myself as hard as I could before I would get to that point.
Excellent. Ashley.
Yeah, so I would say a really important thing is to hire good people. And let me explain. That's not necessarily, yes, they can do the job, their resume checks out, but good people who
good, decent
align
people.
with your
Hopefully.
values, especially if it's an e-commerce site or just being able to do all those things yourself and be able to talk to people and design people and tweak things, I think is really important and just saves a lot of money in the get-go.
Okay.
I think there are two things to take into account. You have to first understand the value of what you're offering.
That's interesting.
Because if anybody's taken the workshop in business opportunities and had a chance to meet Walter Geyer used to say, this is either a business or a very expensive hobby. Right?
Hello, right?
But
right?
but it's
Yeah.
really important to understand the value, not just to yourself, but what it is that you're offering. Because if it's an expensive hobby, then treat it as a hobby. But if it's something of value, take it really seriously and safeguard it. That's the first thing.
How do you do that?
You hire the right people.
Okay,
You
all right.
you hire people who, yes, skill set might be there, but they have to be also aligned with what you are trying to do. And so, most of us on this panel, I think, are trying to do something that's larger than ourselves. It's
Absolutely,
larger, and so you need to have people who are committed to the vision. Because you're going to ask them to work hard. So they have to feel that they have equity in what you're doing. So you have to offer equity. Know the difference between investing and spending.
Oh, interesting.
It's a huge. When you invest, you expect to have a return. But spending is when that money is going to go out the door and it's not going to come back. So you want to maximize your investment, and you want to reduce as much possible your spending.
Now, what about you, Anna, in terms of advice?
This is all really great advice, but I would also say aggressively prioritize and don't be afraid to say no to requests and opportunities that aren't aligned with your essential goals. And also make sure to revisit those goals to make sure that the things that you're chasing after are the things that you still want, that you're still on the right track, and pivot if you need to. And on a practical level, I would say know your finances. Do not just hire a bookkeeper and an accountant and be like, here you go. Like, know where your cash flow, know your cash flow, know your P&Ls, know your balance sheets, know where the money's going, and be on top of that.
Well, this was fantastic, and I'm sure that our audience got a lot from this conversation. I know I did, because I'm also in business in a lot of ways with this television program. So I learned a tremendous amount. So I'm thanking each of you for your insight and your perspectives.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.